Hey folks, so I wanted to take a few minutes here just to give you a few study tips and maybe touch on a couple things that I did not talk about in the Collaborate session or the lectures because I want you guys to be successful in this test. It is going to be a bit of a tricky one just because of the memorization involved. So a few things I want to make sure to point out. Again, you have to know the order of draw. You have to know what additive is in each of those tubes that are in the order of draw, and you have to know the action of each of those additives, okay? So make sure you have those memorized, again, just for the tubes that are in the order of draw. The correct order of draw, the additive, and the action of the additive. You also need to know the order of draw for the dermal and capillary punctures, because remember that varies slightly from the order of draw, and it's smaller than the order of draw from the routine venipuncture. All right, you guys want to make sure too that you understand when we're talking about needle gauge, make sure you know what that is referring to. So when we're talking about the gauge of a needle, that's the diameter, okay? So obviously that's the diameter around any opening in like a vessel or in these needles. That opening, that hollow space is called a lumen. So again, you've got your lumen, you've got the diameter of the needle, and that's called a gauge. So usually for phlebotomy, again, we're using anywhere from 21 to 23 gauge, and just make sure that you understand what that means. And what I was going to say about that is the larger the gauge, the smaller the diameter, okay? So if you've got a 23 gauge needle or a 16 gauge needle, the diameter of the 16 gauge is going to be much bigger around than the 23 gauge. You want to make sure that you remember what hemoconcentration is. So make sure you look that up and understand that. Make sure you understand what hemodialysis, excuse me, not hemodialysis. You do need to know what hemodialysis is, but I meant to say what hemolysis is. So hemoconcentration and hemolysis. We talked about some complications from phlebotomy. Make sure that you review those. This is where we were talking about syncope, petechia, what else was on there? The exsanguination, that whole group. Make sure you know it's the complications of venipuncture. Make sure you review those as well and just have a general idea of what each of those are. Remember when you're labeling a specimen, we know we've talked a lot about what has to be on the label, like name, date of birth, a patient identifier, your date and time, your signature. We've talked about that a lot. Make sure you understand too, how is a label properly adhered to an evacuated tube, and what would be an improper placement of that label. So make sure you review that as well. I forgot to mention this in the lectures, and I wanted to point out something. We talked a lot about we need to screen our patients for allergies, you know, and specifically we did talk about latex because that's kind of the major one. But something to remember is, oh, and we also talked about that it's rare, but some patients will have a sensitivity or an allergy to the 70% isopropyl alcohol gauze antiseptic wipes. What I forgot to mention was that iodine allergies are a thing too. And if someone has a shellfish or iodine allergy, that means that they're going to be at risk of being allergic to something with an antiseptic that uses iodine. So again, shellfish and iodine allergies kind of go hand in hand, and that may play a role in what kind of antiseptic you're using as well. I think those were the main things. Again, I just wanted to make sure I had pointed out a couple of those things that I don't think I emphasized, and then also again stress the importance of the additives, their actions, and the order of draw. So I hope this video helps to study. You guys are going to do great. Just make yourself some flashcards or figure out a good way for you guys to get familiar with some of those things. Okay, thank you guys. Have a good night or day or afternoon or whatever it is. All right, bye.